Welcome back, everybody. Looks like I'm on my own today for the heater hoses. As you can tell, it's a little sweaty. It's gotten really hot here real fast. What I'm going to be doing today is going to start getting the heater hoses on. I've noticed that they really don't have a video out there showing anybody throwing the heater hoses on an EJ 255 or 257 in. So what I'm going to do is, as I'm throwing it together, I'll go ahead and do some snippets here of where these different hoses hook up to. It may be different for an STI or a WRX, but this is a Outback XT. Should be very similar to a Legacy GT at the same time. So I'm going to go ahead and get started on this, and I'll show you all along the way. Before you even get started, when you put the engine together, you're going to have to put these two lines here on the water pump, and these hook into the piping that goes over the top of the engine. There's also a black 90 there that hooks in, and then two more black 90s in here. Those are for the oil cooler. I didn't have any colored hoses for that one, but before you even get the timing on, you had to get those hoses put together. Next ones I put in here, the heater hoses. They go top, bottom here. So this top one here winds down and goes to this one right here. And then this bottom one here winds around through here and hits this one right here. So along with that jacket is this hose right here, which I've got hooked up right now. I don't have it tightened down yet. This is going to end up going in the back of the intake manifold on the throttle body. Alright, so the next one we put in, there's this little 90-degree here. It goes on top of the block. Goes down into another jacket all the way down here. Alright, the next piece I'm going to be putting on is actually going to go on the throttle body attached to the intake manifold. It's the squirrely long piece here. And the reason I'm putting it on here first is because it's a lot easier to get at this when it's off the engine than while it's on. So you can see this is where it connects. It's the outermost pipe on the throttle body itself. And then this end here will attach here to this. And then this right here, that's coming off of that pipe right there, off the side, is going to in turn attach down here. Okay, just to show fitment, next is this piece here. This one is going to connect right here. And then on this one right here, which is furthest back on the driver's side valve cover. That's that one in place, right there, right there. Now, something to remember is when you're putting these on, these are silicone. You don't have to tighten them down till you can't turn the screw anymore. All you need to do is just tighten it down long enough to be able to start to feel the silicone compress. And once that's done, that's really tight enough. The next one that we're going to be working on, or that we just got on, is this one right here. There's a small pipe coming off the bottom of the passenger side head, and that's going to go up into your turbo. Now that we've got the turbo on, you can see where this hose now hooks up. It goes on the bottom side of the turbo, comes right out the side there, just above the head. And in the meantime, when we were putting some of the other hoses to the side to start to figure out how to do the rest of the breather lines and some of the coolant lines on top of the engine. We noticed that the Legacy GT version of the kit that we have was not lining up with this, and there were some extra hoses in there that didn't line up with this. So come to find out, the crossover pipe for the Legacy GT is a little different. So we spent a couple days now getting this ordered. This is the crossover pipe off a 2007 Legacy GT. You'll notice that right here in this area, that pipe is different. See, this one comes straight. This one curves down and has a short one. I actually have the hose that fits the curve. Same thing over here. You see this piece here on the Legacy GT comes up and over, and that's the hose that we have. Whereas the Outback XT, it comes straight up. Everything else pretty much lines up on it. So now that we have that piece of the equation figured out, we're going to go ahead and swap those out, and we'll keep going with the tutorial on how to get these coolant and breather lines put together. All right, we got the new cross pipe on. You see it points off to the side now instead of straight up. We also have the new line here on. So this is the front feed solid tube from the water pump, and it's going into the bottom there. So this piece here picked up for about 20 bucks at the Subaru dealership, so they're not really expensive at all. So I would recommend it if you're doing an Outback XT and you're getting the Legacy kit for it. It'll just save you a lot of time. 20 bucks really isn't that much. Next we have this piece here. It's going to be going on the back of that crossover tube and into this spot right there into the case. Next in the lineup is this tube right here. It's going to go on here. It's one of the coolant lines. So this one right here. And it's going to end up connecting over here on the coolant reservoir on this one right here. Next is going to be this piece right here, which is going to connect to this top pipe coming off the turbo, another coolant line. And then that is going to go to the top of your reservoir. This hose here comes up off the top of the turbo and goes into the reservoir. And then this here comes up and travels along and goes into the bottom of the reservoir down here. Next is this big long one here, which is also the reason why we bought the different crossover pipe. It goes on the large hole there on top of the valve cover right here, and then it goes into that pipe right there. We have this piece here, which goes on the plastic breather hose that goes and travels along the back side of the intake manifold. And passenger side looks like this. Sets down in these areas like so, and then goes in under here like so. It's gonna plug into this smaller piece right here. On this side, it's going to come down. It's going to go in same spot on this side. The small breather hose. She's going to come around like so. It's going to go in there, and then it'll connect up here. Okay, next we have this little piece right here. This goes up under here. The same plastic cross piece that we have had a nozzle off the side of it here. So this hose goes up here, and then it plugs into the larger hose if you're on an aftermarket turbo inlet. If you are using the stock turbo inlet, it's this right here. So you see that coming off there in front of all the boost controller and all those items there. So this one right here is what it replaces. Okay, so there is a long hose here. Comes out of the brake booster. It's going to go in the back of the intake manifold. And it goes on this piece right here. You see there's 3 different pieces there. This one goes to the PCV and case breather. This one actually goes up to the blow-off valve on the intercooler. And this one plugs into that brake booster. Just like that. Okay, so next we have this little piece here. It's a vacuum line, multiple shape here. This plugs into the base. There we go. Base there, and then into that vacuum right here where all the fuel lines are coming in.
And I just came in.
You just came in. This line right here goes into the small fuel line here. Okay, so to map out a couple of the vacuum lines here in the front of the engine. This used to be one large piece here, including this. This used to sit up back underneath it, but because of the relocation that we did of the turbo intake, the type of turbo intake that we have, needed a Legacy GT blow-off valve hose as well. So I had to relocate this piece to the front. So just keep that in mind when I'm showing you where these go. So this piece here, this foam covered breather, hooks into the bottom of this here, and the other end of it hooks in right here. On this item here, the top hose goes into this T, and then one hose goes out to the other end of that breather fuel line. This breather fuel line is the same one that we plugged this in on the other end. Now I forgot to say earlier when we went over putting this on that we have switched over to a top feed type fuel system. So all my fuel lines are here instead of the metal originals. If you have the original metal line still, you'll actually have 3 metal hoses going through here. 2 will be actual fuel lines, and then this will be the vacuum line. So the other end of this vacuum line goes down here, and normally you would have the multiple lines available. So just wanted to give that heads up to you. Okay, so back at it, we have the boost controller here. The far deepest one comes off the boost controller and goes into this elbow here on the turbo inlet. This one here actually goes into a reducer and then comes back here and plugs into the vacuum line on the turbo. There's a T there that goes between the solenoid and the body of the turbo. So there's a T there, comes through, and then hooks into this hose here with a reducer. And that's tucked up in there. So next thing we have is, so we already talked about this one here that comes straight through. Now we've got this bottom one here that just loops up here and goes into the front side of the intake manifold. We also have, kind of stuck down in here, there is a valve here as well. This goes into the bottom end of the T. It goes into the side here, into the side of this. And then the other side comes out and goes into the other elbow on the front of the turbo inlet. Now on the bottom side of this is another pip, and that one hooks in to this T right here. Now this T right here is the one that I showed earlier, and it's the middle pip on the back side of the intake manifold. The middle line came off of here, T's off. This line here is going to come up. It's going to come up here, and then it's going to go into the blow-off valve. And it's going to plug into the blow-off valve here on your intercooler right here. So here's one area where the tubing is going to be different than the stock. We are doing a Grimspeed style air oil separator. So coming off the top of the T off of the crankcase, it tees off this black line here. It's going to be hard to see. The black line goes into the left-hand pip next to the one that we did for the blow-off valve. It's going to go into that metal one. Now normally this top hose here would go into the top of the turbo inlet, but because we're doing a Grimspeed style air oil separator, we've got it turned around. We're going to be coming off this way and then over into the air oil separator. Did a quick mount of my radiator in there just so we can show these last couple pieces here. We've got this bigger piece here, goes off of the larger pip here on the top of the overflow tank. It goes down, comes into the corner of the radiator. Then the smaller line comes up near the pip next to the cap. This is going to come all the way down here and into the pipe on the front of the radiator. For the top radiator hose, which is the larger one, we're going to be putting that down here next to the power steering pump. And then the other piece comes up here to the middle of the top of the radiator. The bottom radiator hose, which is the smaller of the two, goes like such. It's going to go down here off the bottom of the radiator, and then it'll plug into the inlet on the water pump. Well, that's all the hoses in our kit. Hopefully this helped you guys out with your Subaru project. If this video helped you out, please help us out by hitting that subscribe button and hitting like on this video. And as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.